As we mentioned before the break, a deal to release dozens of hostages held by Hamas in Gaza could come as soon as today. This would likely involve a multi-day ceasefire and Israel's release of some Palestinian prisoners.
So joining us to discuss the situation is North Central College political science professor Stephen Caliendo. Professor, thank you for joining us.
It's great to see you, Natalie and Anthony.
Good to see you, too. So is there any indication that the 10 Americans still being held hostage could be released in this next group?
It's been real quiet all day long. I think we're waiting any moment now to hear more about specifics. The report that I saw made it sound like it was almost solely going to be children, maybe some women and some women who maybe aren't in great health, but mostly children in the group of 50 that are planned to be released. And so I'm not sure beyond that where the negotiations will go.
We had previously said, Professor Caliendo, that Israel and their leadership, the IDF leadership, was saying any ceasefire would only give Hamas more time to regroup. Does this potential hostage exchange surprise you?
A little bit, only because of what again, we don't have official word yet, only the drips that are coming in. The terms surprised me a little bit. They're not calling it a ceasefire, Anthony. They're calling it a truce or a temporary pause. But they're trying, I think they're trying to avoid the word ceasefire. But my understanding is, besides the release of some Palestinian prisoners, that there's some negotiation about blocks of time each day where there would not be IDF surveillance over Gaza. In as much as 6 hours a day. That's the part that surprises me, because Hamas could accomplish a lot in 6 hours without Israeli forces' eyes upon them. But as you know, there's been a lot of pressure to get some of these hostages released. And so I'm surprised, but I'm not shocked.
You know, and 50 seems like such a great number, and it is. But I mean, after those 50 are released, there's still about 200 hostages held by Hamas. What do you think the likelihood is that there will be more negotiations down the road to release those people as well?
Yeah, and neighboring Qatar has been negotiating here and trying to make these arrangements, and I think that will continue. That started almost immediately after October 7th, where those folks were involved. I think that will continue. I think the last folks to be released, if they're released at all, will be sort of men of fighting age. For instance, healthy men of fighting age. They're going to be seen as sort of enemy combatants, even though, of course, when they were taken, they were not. Most of them were not part of any Israeli force, but civilians. And so, this is a significant step. You're right, but it's fewer than a quarter of the total number of folks who are held at this time.
Switching gears now to the attack of American assets and military bases in the Middle East by Iran. There have been 66 attacks since the Hamas-Israel war started. Is the U.S., in your mind, doing enough to deter those attacks?
Well, I'm not a military strategist, so I want to be careful, but I know that there's a lot of concern there on both fronts. One is that they have to do more, do as much as possible to protect those assets, but secondly, make sure that they're not positioning or signaling in any particular way to intensify the fighting, or to invite more attacks. And so it's a delicate walk. Diplomacy has some to do with that, of course, but also military preparation and positioning has a lot to do with it as well.
I want to kind of just quickly, since we've got a few moments left here, circle back to President Biden's, or circle to, I should say, President Biden's approval rating. It has gone down significantly, and we all know that that international policy has a lot to do with it, with his administration. What can he do to make that better?
Natalie, I'm so glad you brought that up. It's really important because, of course, the U.S. is a really powerful player in these negotiations, for one. And secondly, it's not only that President Biden's approval ratings are low, but they're low, really low among young people. And it's young people who have been really engaged in thinking about what's happening in the Middle East and pushing for a ceasefire of some sort. A ceasefire altogether would be preferable to lots of folks. And so he's losing that demographic, which is going to be a key demographic as we move into next year. Of course, who the Republican nominee is and then what the third-party landscape looks like is all going to determine that as well. And I'm guessing that you'll have some questions for me about that in the coming months.
Indeed, we will. Professor Caliendo, thank you for your time as always, sir, and happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays to you both.
Thank you.